Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Power Retail webinar. My name is Grant Arnott, and I am the publisher of Power Retail. So thank you for registering. We know you're going to enjoy today's session featuring a fantastic forward-thinking, innovative business called Style Runner. So today's webinar is brought to you by the leading cloud-based e-commerce platform, Netsuite. Our presenters are Tony Gleeson, Head of Retail ANZ for Netsuite, and Julie Stavagna, co-founder of Style Runner. Now, there'll be plenty of time for Q&A at the conclusion of the session, and you can queue up questions at any time during the presentation by typing into the questions dialog box on your dashboard. And now I'd like to introduce you to Tony Gleeson to kick off the presentation. Please welcome Tony.
So I'm going to just reintroduce myself and re-kick this session off. So thank you everyone for jumping online this afternoon to hear the story for our customer Style Runner. I am Tony Gleeson, Head of Retail for Netsuite ANZ, and I will be introducing one of my clients here, Julie Stavagna, shortly. So in terms of some housekeeping this afternoon, I'm going to try and keep my session to around about 3 to 4 minutes and just compress my content, and then give Julie around about 25 minutes to go through her presentation. We're going to do a Q&A session at the end of this, and we're trying just to keep a bit of time at the end of this so you guys can ask some questions. Okay, so assuming my technical difficulties have cleared up, here we're just going to introduce the slideshow. So Julie Stavagna, co-founder of Style Runner, started the business in 2012 and engaged with Netsuite a short period of time after that. So Julie and I have been working together for some time. I personally am also an ex-Netsuite customer. Twice I bought Netsuite in my previous years, but then joined the company in 2011. The last 4 years I've helped around 70 organisations transform their operations onto the Netsuite platform. So in terms of Netsuite, what we do, I guess a quick introduction. We are the undisputed cloud ERP leader globally. We're a software company that was founded in 1998, and we're currently the world's most deployed cloud-based ERP. About 3 years ago, we started to truly focus on the retail market and came up with an omni-channel retail management platform that we could deliver globally to all of our retail opportunities. And as you'll see, there's quite a few logos or companies that we're working with in the local market, so we've made quite a strong impact. In terms of commerce, some of the challenges that we see today is that customer experience is king, and we think that businesses cannot win you and keep existing customers on price alone. So customers are truly in the driving seat when they're making purchases, and they're dictating to businesses how they want to interact with brands anytime and anywhere. So if they don't like the experience that your brand provides, the competition is just a click away. One of the other challenges is that multiple business models is the norm. So whether you're selling and buy relationships are constantly changing, we're seeing that a lot of vertical markets are really shifting. What used to be a wholesale market or a manufacturing market, those guys are now wanting to be retailers too. So it's one of the true challenges for retailers today is how do they keep their existing customers but also attracting new ones. So how do you then start to differentiate yourself to the competition? From Netsuite's perspective, part of the platform of what we deliver, we have a commerce platform that truly gives you an operational system that is very customer-centric and provides a 360-degree view of your customer at all times. We're constantly providing innovative experiences through our platform, so being able to give you guys the tools and technology to make your storefronts, or whether they're online or offline, available to your customers and to meet your customers' needs in terms of how they want to shop and engage with you. We have a single system that orchestrates very intelligent order management processing. So whether you've got orders coming in from online or in-store or wholesale or retail, doesn't really matter. The Netsuite platform can handle that for you. And our platform is a cloud-based application, which means it scales incredibly easy. So whether you want one store here in Australia or whether you're looking for 100 stores across the world, it's still one single system that has unlimited expansion capabilities. And it is one single true cloud platform, one single database across your retail operation, so truly allowing you to kind of have that global view from a single application, something that's really easy and straightforward to manage. This little diagram here just kind of shows truly what we do for a retailer. We're looking at here all the different multiple channels to market that you may want to engage your customers, and then kind of integrating that with all the different supply chains that you may have into your business, whether they're international manufacturers or whether they're distributors or third-party warehouses, etc. What we do is we kind of bring all that together and consolidate it into a single system wrapped around a lot of the business processes and functions that you have in your business. So this just gives you a really quick snapshot as to what the Netsuite platform looks like for your operations, and this is certainly where Style Runner is moving to, and the platform that's allowing Style Runner to really accelerate that global growth that they're seeing. So on that note, I do want to hand over to Julie and introduce Julie, who is the co-founder of Style Runner, and Julie can take us through the experience that she's had on the NetSuite platform and what she's doing with her business. Thanks, Julie.
All right, thank you, Tony. And
hi, thanks for the introduction, Tony, and thanks everyone for. Sorry, Grant, go ahead.
That's all right, Julie. I just thought I might introduce you quickly into the webinar, and it looked like we had some technical difficulties with Tony there, so I do apologise, everyone, but you will get plenty of chance for Q&A regarding the NetSuite platform at the conclusion. But look, I just wanted to introduce you, Julie. We've met a couple of times now, and I'm a big fan of the Style Runner business and how fast you're moving into this space and doing some things that other fashion retailers haven't done. So I know you founded this with your twin sister, Sally, and continue to be very hands-on in the running of a fast-growing business and have big plans. I was fortunate enough to see you speak in Melbourne recently, and I think I can't wait to hand over to you now, and so I'm going to do that before I wrap it on. And let's hear from Julie Stavagna, the co-founder of Style Runner now. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our journey along the way, but primarily this presentation is about, I guess, some of the inflection points and, where we really had to stop and decide what was important for us to be able to grow the business and the decisions we made around that. So to begin with, I'll give you a little introduction about how Style Runner came about. So it started as I was living in London. My twin sister was living here in Sydney. And we were actually just two girls who loved to work out and loved to shop. And so this business came about because we were two consumers who couldn't find what we wanted, and that was fashion-forward activewear and a huge variety. As girls who love to shop, we have, a pretty voracious appetite for, something fresh and something new and something exciting. We found that there was really only about 4 or 5 major sportswear labels that we had easy access to around the world, and I'm pretty sure we all know which 4 or 5 they are. As much as we love those, we wanted, something to mix it back with, to be able to, really come up with outfits that we loved and inspired us, and we had fun in, feeling great in at the gym. So no idea how to do that, but being very ambitious, we figured that we would figure it out along the way. So we set a target of launching before summer. So we had the idea in around July 2012. And we wanted to launch the business in 3 months. So we actually ended up launching in 4 months. We launched in October 2012. And so to do that, it meant that we had to, really find very fast solutions and get up and running, and that we would need to continue to improve and evolve our systems along the way. If we wanted a perfect launch, it would take a couple of years of planning. But having very little understanding about, I guess, the rest of the industry, we knew that we'd want to do a lot more research about what the ultimate solution was. So I guess you could call that the lean startup approach. Get up and running on a fairly lean model, test what's working, what's not, and continue to improve. So October 2012, we launched, and back in that day, things were pretty simple. We had 11 brands, obviously much smaller quantities. And it was pretty easy to learn what needed to be adjusted and improved along the business. So I'll continue along our journey and tell you where we had a few pain points and what we did about that. So for starters, the ultimate question: are we a retail company? We obviously revolve around product, and it's actually the part that we love. We're personally passionate about it. We employ a team who are passionate about it. We wrap it in tissue paper. We have beautiful branded boxes. We are excited to uncover new brands all around the world. It's all about the product for us in terms of what we're delivering the customer, but we don't see ourselves as a retail company. And I'm sure you've heard that many times before, but we see ourselves as a technology company. So being a technology company, what does that mean? It means that we need data to drive every decision. So yes, we love product, but if we're going to buy product, we need to ensure that we know what sort of product we need, who we're buying that for, what volumes we need, and when we need it. And obviously, ultimately, getting towards just-in-time inventory management and running as a very lean operation. So the first thing that we loved about NetSuite when we evaluated a whole bunch of ERP systems was the level of granularity and configuration that is possible in the system. So for us, we can tell not just which brands are profitable and at what level, but we can have a look at profitability just as one example across not only brands, but we can have a look at it against categories and also across activities such as yoga versus running. We could also, configure other tags, so we could have a look at how profitable is more fashion-forward activewear versus traditional activewear. So we love that level of granularity that we can get out of the NetSuite system. We also love that it's a single source of truth. So as we were growing as a very young company, we had multiple spreadsheets, Excel databases, very, very manual. But as a company that's operating on a huge amount of data, being able to have all of that in one single database has been, one of the greatest improvements in efficiency for us. Every piece of information regarding a brand or a product or a category is there for us to slice and dice, for us to be able to make decisions around marketing, purchasing, looking at the financials. So this map is a little bit out of date, but as I said, I was living in London at the time that we had an idea for this, and Sally was living here in Sydney, and we figured that given we both found it very difficult, we realised this was a global opportunity. Any city that you were in the world, it was very difficult to access, a large range of brands. So from the get-go, we decided that we wanted this to be a global company, and we wanted to pursue a global opportunity. So we started shipping globally from day one, and indeed in the first month we started shipping internationally, and there's been a lot of word of mouth, and of course social media has helped with that. So to date we've shipped to 84 countries, and that's something that we intend to continue to grow. To date it has been quite passive, but we do eventually want to have distribution centres in multiple countries. We also want to roll out local sites, being able to transact in local currencies, eventually being able to have local, translation in local countries. And that will help with not only SEO and trust, but ultimately increasing conversion rate. So if you have that if you also have that as a goal, which I think most retailers do, having a system which will allow you to roll out local sites with taxation already pre-configured, it is incredibly valuable. So NetSuite was one of the ones that we found were doing that seamlessly, and the product that we use there is called Suite World. I think, correct me if I'm wrong at the end, Tony, but we're looking forward to rolling that out starting this year with local sites, and in coming years with local distribution centres in many of these countries. Well, a couple of the regions, should I say. So this has been a crazy journey that we've been on to date. You can imagine us in this bottom left corner in our first little office. We had 3 staff, including the 2 founders. So I guess you could say we had 1 staff member, and we had the ultimate startup office of a lounge and a kitchen table, and we had lofty visions. But fortunately, I guess we were onto a good thing, and we've worked incredibly hard, and the business is now operating at a multi-million-dollar revenue. We have grown at 500% growth year on year, and we're on track to do the same again this year. So with a business that is going at this rate and doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon, we're really looking for a very robust and reliable system. I think we can all get very excited about a lot of the marketing products that are out there. What can we do about merchandising and personalizing the products for every customer, etc., which is certainly within our goals at the moment. But first and foremost, we wanted to really future-proof our business with a very robust system that is going to be strong, but also scalable as we continue to grow, and it's going to be able to cope when we're not just turning over multi-millions, but hopefully multi-tens of millions and onwards. And NetSuite is certainly capable of that. They have many businesses operating in hundreds of millions and beyond. So the first thing we were looking for was really a very rock-solid system. As I said, we started and we got up and running very quickly, but we wanted to learn as much as we could. We spent a lot of time researching a vast number of ERP systems, and also getting recommendations from some of the most talented tech people in the industry here in Australia, and NetSuite was one that came up time and time again. I've also had the pleasure of meeting CEO of NetSuite and talking alongside him at a conference, and I think that they're a very innovative cloud-based company, which I think gives me a lot of confidence in where the product is going in the future. For me, it's not just a solution that we need now. How is this, how is this software going to manage our inventory? How is it going to help us scale our business? But it needs to be a brand or a partner that you believe in for 5 years' time and 10 years' time. So I think finding a company which is adapting very quickly, who had the foresight to, for example, base themselves on cloud, earlier than anyone, gave me a lot of confidence that these people are visionary, they're forward looking, and they're adapting to best-in-class solutions and capabilities, which is going to be more important for the next 5 or 10 years ahead. So this is us in 2012. Currently, we have 15 full-timers. We also have about 10 part-timers, who we need to organise and manage. And as I created this slide, my husband asked me to change the number on the right-hand side from 2016 to 2017. But it looks like in reality, we may hit this more like next year. We're growing at quite a rapid pace. The reason that this is important is, the system that we choose is something that every single person is going to be impacted by. One of the things that I loved about NetSuite, and it's something we all need to do, is have a look at the interface and have a go at using it, is that NetSuite is incredibly intuitive. The interface is beautiful and easy to use. And it's kind of a pleasure to use. I know that sounds so simple, but if you've tried a couple of others, they can be incredibly complex, and I guess they come from another era, if you get what I mean. NetSuite, as a very progressive company, have designed things for the way things should be, should be used. That it's easy to use, and that's important for ensuring our staff are working efficiently. Everyone that works for a startup, and this is not unique to us at StyleRunner, but I'm sure it's common in many startups around the world, is by nature a very ambitious creature. So we have people here who are incredibly talented, incredibly hardworking, incredibly passionate, and there is nothing more demotivating than working on a system which is has limitations, it's restrictive, it's slow. You need to do things in ways that are counterintuitive. So being able to support our staff and our team with a system which is not only easy to use and intuitive, but allows them to excel, I think is an incredibly important part of a company culture that is trying to grow rapidly and excel. So again, one of the things that I love most is that this is a system which is going to support our team to be able to work efficiently, work fast, and support all the things they're trying to do. Inventory. So again, this is part of what we love. It's something that I'm absolutely passionate about, but it's certainly a very different story today than it was when we started the business 2.5 years ago. These days we have deliveries turn up and we'll have a truck that has sort of 70 or 100 boxes, and they haven't delivered the entire order because it couldn't fit on the truck. So very different days from receiving 2 or 3 boxes. So now we need to manage our inventory in a much more complex manner. That was definitely a pain point for us as we were growing, whereas we now have a much more sophisticated system. I think the entire process of moving over to an ERP system like NetSuite is definitely about becoming a much more sophisticated company. It's running more efficiently, that's making better decisions. So NetSuite allows us to not only handle inventory in multiple locations, whether that is multiple distribution centers in the future, whether it's omni-channel, whether that's a brick and mortar store one day, or whether that's just having a pop-up store and being able to have point of sale. It also allows us to monitor our sell-through rates in the middle of the month and pick up more stock on hand, or send back stock in the middle of the month if our brands could handle that better via another channel. Obviously manage things like cancelled styles, faulties, customer returns much more seamlessly. One of the most important things about NetSuite, which I didn't find anywhere else, was this entire single source solution. So NetSuite is not just an ERP center, they're a system. There are lots of ERP systems out there. It also has the e-commerce side plugged into it. It also has the CRM plugged into it, so that there is one single source for absolutely everything. There are lots of very good products out there, but every other solution I looked at had to build that together with, you know, layers of connection. NetSuite has one database, and everything across the customer is recorded there. So being a customer-forward company, customer-centric company, we want to understand her as best as possible. So now if we have a customer call up on the phone, our customer service staff could, for example, bring up their records. We could have a look at what that customer has not only purchased but browsed, and, you know, we can see her preferences. Obviously, you can see where this is leading with so much data around our customers. You know, it's about the CRM point of things. If we know what she's browsing, if we know what her preferences are, in any way that we want to configure it, you know, so think outside the square, perhaps break that down into price brackets. Why send someone a newsletter on, you know, a $400 pair of tights if they're always shopping the sales center? So this is all about being able to customize your newsletters. Also, you know, the product that she's seeing when she's browsing. For us, this is a foundational step. Moving on to NetSuite is really just the beginning of our continual path of innovation in the future. So we would like to be doing a lot more, and we believe that in 2 years we've come a long way, and we can't, you know, have achieved it all in 2 years, but we really want to be a very innovative company and continue to use the data that we have around our customer to the best of our ability. So we will be doing things like dynamic merchandising and making sure that when she visits our store, she's seeing product that is more likely to be applicable to her. She can choose at the moment. A lot of people allow customers to opt into the sort of newsletters they want, but this can do that intuitively. So if you know what she's purchasing, you can send those out based on price point, color-wise, brand, etc. Ultimately, recommendation engines. I think all of these are things that we'll all be doing in the future, but to do that well, we need the granularity of the data around everything. And once you have that data, you can later mine that, even if you don't have the capability of being able to mine that and maximize that now, starting to create that so that as you continue to evolve your business and add different merchandising techniques or you know, improving the sophistication of your newsletters, all the sorts of things that we know are incredibly important. It starts with creating that single source of data. So with our customer service, we don't store that in a separate area anymore. Everything is stored in a single source. So we don't have you know, one. Again, it comes down to eliminating multiple different systems and being able to log into one system, which eliminates, you know, double handling, you know, recording things several times, makes a lot of inefficient systems redundant. Being a social company, I guess we see ourselves as a very new age business. We see things very differently. We've always done things very differently, and a lot of our partners will, you know, kind of say, no, things are not done like that, or no one's ever done things that way. And that's something that we pride ourselves on, and, you know, we want to look at the world in a different way. And being consumers ourselves, we look at it from a consumer's lens, and we say, how would our customers want this done for them? So we're also looking for a brand that has a similar focus. One of the things I love about NetSuite is again the cloud-based system, but also being able to log onto their system on the go, you know, on my mobile. I think that they've done such a great job of providing a system which is not only very sophisticated, and by that I think it's one of the most sophisticated ERP and financial systems that I've come across. NetSuite was, you know, built for CFOs. It has the granularity across, you know, everything from accounting to inventory to customer information. But it's also simple. It's simple to use and it's beautiful. And I think that it's the sort of company we want to be working with and you know, building our future on. So our decision came about to not only solve all the pain points that I've discussed, but really partner with someone that is going to be part of our journey going forward. As a rapidly growing company, it's been a pleasure to not only work with a brand that has already done that to date, but has worked very close with us to support us as a new brand to the market and help share their knowledge and their expertise in the retail world and allow us to grow. So that's pretty much a run through. I'm happy for Grant to open the floor up to any questions, and hopefully we can answer those in more detail, so we're giving you information about what you'd like to hear.
All right, thank you so much, Julie. So yeah, great presentation, and again, sorry about the some of the difficulties earlier in the webinar, but certainly got through the crux of it there with Julie, and I think it's a fascinating story. So I can see that there's a couple of people typing in some questions, and for those who aren't aware, you can just use the questions dialog box. Look, I guess one of the things I'd ask you, Julie, you touched on it earlier, but perhaps you can expand. You're delivering to 84 countries. What were some of the challenges in being able to facilitate that, and how did you overcome those?
There were lots of challenges. Unfortunately, we love challenges. It was understanding each of the markets to start with. Different taxation for different different countries. So being able to have that built in as part of Suite World is an incredibly sophisticated way to minimize the hurdles or the barriers of purchase for customers in each of those countries. So essentially, we clearly have customers in all of these countries wanting to purchase from StyleRunner, but they want to be able to see your products in their local currency. They want to know that it's going to be charged to them in local currencies. They're not going to have foreign exchange fees. It's also minimizing as many pain points as you can, so that as a growing business, you can concentrate on what's important, and that's it's delivering exceptional service and range and quality to your customers. So it was a solution which kind of looked after a lot of that and is made for that. It's I believe Williams-Sonoma is a business that is just rolled out in Australia, and they've rolled out, Tony can tell us more about it, but several websites in just a matter of months, and they're a multi-billion-dollar turnover company, Tony?
Yeah, that's right. So Williams-Sonoma, in terms of their Australian operations, rolled out 4 retail stores, 4 e-commerce sites, and their entire ERP platform within a few months' time, and that was for the Australian launch. And that project was so successful, they've kind of used that as the template to then do it across the country and into some other regions across the world. And I think that's just what the benefits of having a cloud platform, where it's easily deployed, quickly deployed, and fairly straightforward to configure. And Julie, I just want to correct you on one of the terms that you use in terms of the e-commerce products. So StyleRunner is actually using what's called our NetSuite One World product, and they're also using our Suite Commerce Advanced technology. So just a few different modules within the platform, but Julie's verbiage around the modules was just a little incorrect, but just to make sure everyone understands, it's our NetSuite One World product with our Suite Commerce Advanced product.
Thank you, Tony.
No worries.
Okay, we've got a lot of questions racking up now, which is great, guys. Thanks for tuning in. So as a startup, this is from Bridget, how did you earn the trust of such major retailers as Nike and Adidas to become a reseller of those global brands?
I think that it's about setting a very high benchmark, and we have a saying at StyleRunner, which is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I think that's evident in a lot of the things we do, and it's probably perfectly relatable coming back to NetSuite. As a very young company, we started talking to NetSuite when we were just over a year old, and I'm not sure even if we had turned over our first million. So it's very, very early for most startups to start thinking in that sort of way and planning such a sophisticated, robust system. But it is an example of always wanting to do something, I guess, in a world-class fashion. So our communication with each of these major brands, we do everything with that much level of care, and ultimately we approach these brands wanting to be able to assist these brands. We want to add as much value back to the brands that we bring on board, as we do for brands that we're building around ourselves. So I think when you're partnering with someone and willing and showing how you're able to share back and add value, that's the most important thing to keep in mind, because it's not about we want your product, please can we have it. It's about we're a growing business, our standards are here. These are some examples of the sort of things we're doing at an exceptional level, and they're examples of how we would therefore treat your brand. And this is what we think we could be able to help you with as we were, if we were to partner.
Okay, another question now from James. Do you use the accounting feature of NetSuite, and how does this perform against others? And have you had experience with other accounting packages?
Yes. So this was really one of the things that we wanted to, nut out most importantly. We had been using Xero to begin with. I think that they are a fantastic company for a startup. But we knew they wouldn't be able to scale with us, infinitely. There's limitations to the size of business, I guess, that some of these fantastic new startups businesses do. But when you would need to evolve from that eventually, we had a look at many different systems. Not only did I find that NetSuite was, again, easier to use, and it sounds repetitive, but really, intuitive and sort of beautiful to work on. But I found it the most sophisticated out of all of the products that I was looking at. Again, I said it was built for CFOs. So this really allows you to slice and dice like nothing I've seen. And on top of that, it was integrated with absolutely everything. So there was that data integrity, which we weren't getting by having multiple systems. And that's not just around the financials. I think if you use Google Analytics as an example of just one system where you can have a look at your sales, and the numbers seem to be off. So we're using all these different systems, and we had, which one's our true sales figure? Obviously, we worked on our website numbers, but never having to worry about that anymore, and you're having one single source which was reliable, and ultimately that plugged into the website, the marketing. So being able to look at the profitability or the return on your marketing in a much more sophisticated way, because it's directly integrated with your CRM system, for example. So it was much more sophisticated, it was easier to use, it was a lot more kind of pleasant to use, and it was completely integrated for a single source of truth.
Julie, maybe just to extend on one of the things that I think was important when I first met you and I saw some of the challenges that you guys were having as a small business that was starting to become enterprising. You were using Xero, which is a fantastic product, but you were really starting to outgrow that. But then having those data sources everywhere, you guys trying to put some reports together was really challenging. I could see you burning lots of time just trying to do that. And then once you put all those things together, you start to question the validity of the data, as to whether maybe it was human intervention or errors made, etc. As you're putting all that stuff together, and that's where NetSuite kind of comes in and just it's real time out of the box. They're all standard kind of things that we do. So that just took away a lot of that time, I guess the time you were burning there and those challenges that you had. And I think that's going to be relevant in any business that starts out as a really fast-growing startup, and as they start to become enterprising, they typically move to something that's a more of an enterprising system like NetSuite. And coincidentally, that's also what Xero did. Xero run their business on NetSuite also. They outgrew their own platform, and that's another great story of someone that started young, but then as they grow really fast, they need those bigger systems to help them do that.
Okay, thank you guys. Now another one probably just for you, Julie. Did you use models for all your images when you first started, or were you using supplier images?
Again, this comes back to how you do anything is how you do everything. So we knew that it would be more expensive, and as a startup, you do look for cost savings where you can, but we wanted to do everything at the highest level that we could. So we always photographed all of our own product on models, and that's the way that we approach everything we do, and we'll continue to do for all of our brands and for every area of our business. Is we don't want to do things in a way that just gets the job done. We want to do things to an exceptional level, and if that means going that extra mile, I'm sure that will help contribute to the growth that we've had to date, and hopefully we'll continue to have.
Okay, great. And Toby's asked, which other systems were close competitors and where did they fall short? And also, does NetSuite offer a POS solution for stores?
I'll answer the first part, Tony, and then I can maybe hand the POS over to you, given your technical level. But the other systems that we looked at were other ERP systems. We looked at all of the very big legacy, products out there. So, IBM and SAP and that sort of thing. My biggest concern around those was, without naming any brand in particular, because I think there was several that were very similar, is that I had heard a lot of unfortunate horror stories about people that found them very difficult to move on to or off of. I think systems all do a great job of what they're built for, but the reality is that at some stage you'll need to either move on to them, and hopefully that's your solution for life, but maybe at some point you build your own systems or whatever it be, you migrate onto something else, you may need to migrate off of it. So one of the biggest pain points I heard a lot of was that some of these legacy systems were, they were tricky to migrate from. And I wanted to avoid all the costly mistakes that I heard a lot of brands making. So that was the one thing that I had heard about a lot of things, but they also weren't cloud-based, or true, cloud-based, as I guess Tony might be able to elaborate on. But NetSuite was clearly one of the only truly cloud-based ERP systems, and that was incredibly important for us, as I said, as a company that consider ourselves modern, innovative, and we want to be able to log on from anywhere in the world. And I think that the workforce is going to continue to evolve that way. It's no longer, come in at 9 and leave at 5 and you must be here. It'll be people collaborating and working from all sorts of different places around the world. So cloud-based was one of the big things that I didn't find out there. And again, lastly, the other thing I didn't find was one entire solution, which had the e-commerce portion as well as the CRM portion and the ERP built together in one seamless platform. Wherever you're going to have multiple different systems. So you might find another fantastic accounting platform or ERP system, but when you're going to have to merge that with your other e-commerce solution, for example, you're going to have layers in between which start to get messy over time. You may have some data dropping out, and you may have to question the validity of your data. So there was no other solution I found that had everything all in one.
Yeah, that's a great point, Julie, and I think just to define maybe what we say is a cloud solution. NetSuite is what's called a software as a service platform, which means that you as a customer never actually own the NetSuite platform. You pay us an annual fee, which is a subscription fee, and we provide you with a completely tailored solution to suit your business that we take complete ownership in terms of maintaining, etc. And how that works, I mean, we have 24 plus thousand customers across the world, and all of those customers are all on the same version of NetSuite, which is the latest version of NetSuite. And versus some of the other guys who say they have cloud solutions, what they really are is kind of legacy platforms that were built some time ago that they've turned into a product that you can access over the internet. It's not necessarily a software as a service product. They may just be hosting it in an Amazon Web Services or something like that, right? So there's a fundamental difference between a software as a service product and other cloud reiterations. And in terms of the question around the point of sale for that gentleman, I think that asked the question, yes, NetSuite does offer a point of sale solution. We've got a solution that we've currently been offering for around about 2.5 years, but we've also got a next generation point of sale being launched in a few months' time. So maybe that person might want to reach out to us and we can share some more details on a one-on-one basis.
Fantastic, guys. Now, another one just regarding the brands and their attitude towards working with you, Julie. Did the brands, mostly Nike and Adidas, have any issue with you when you started shipping in items internationally?
So we actually built into our system the ability to geo-target, and geo-block certain countries. I guess it's a contentious issue, and we always are of the opinion that we want to work to the absolute brand's requests. We never would jeopardize our partnerships with that. So we built in everything we needed to be able to ship on within Australia if that was the request. Unfortunately, the industry as it is, there's a lot more product coming in from outside of Australia into Australia than there is going out, and I think that we sort of get the short end of that stick, and product is a lot cheaper in the US and elsewhere. So the fact is there's probably less product they need to worry about going out because customers, if they're able to get it in the US, they're not buying it from here. It's a much smaller problem for them to monitor or need to worry about what volume is leaving Australia because it is fairly small. and that's something that, if there was a lot coming in via, the US and elsewhere, if it was kind of fine for those other brands to bring it in this way, it was hard for them to be able to restrict their partners, to ship it out. It wasn't fair to be able to say all of these other, stores internationally will ship in our product, but we won't let you ship it out. So ultimately, it was a bit hard to control, and it was a bit unfair to stop one way and not the other. And the reality is, it's kind of doesn't really work in our favour. We think it's fantastic if people do want to buy things from Australia. Obviously it's great for our economy, but the reality is it's more often than not coming in the other way.
All right, great insight. Thanks, Julie. Now another one from Rebecca. My company's website, this is a common complaint I hear in multi-channel retailers. My company's website gets all stock levels from the stores, which then reflects on the website. Currently, this is not a live system, so if something sells in stores, it's not reflected on the website stock levels until the following day. Would NetSuite be able to manage stock levels in this way, i.e. based on the stock that is in stores, and reflect stock levels live in real time?
So yes.
I might answer that question, Julie.
Go for it.
So the answer is yes. NetSuite is a real-time retail management platform. So regardless of how many warehouses or store locations or locations where you retain stock or inventory, systems are also understand through that. I think what the fundamental differences between NetSuite's e-commerce technology and all the other kind of solutions that you can buy in the marketplaces, our e-commerce is actually built on our core ERP system. So that means all the brains and logic sitting in your ERP system, whether it's pricing, customer data, inventory and merchandise, or whatever it may be, and whether it's direct to consumer information or wholesale information, it doesn't matter. We can expose all that logic through the e-commerce layer. So you really get the opportunity to take advantage of the brains of your business in real time on any commerce site that you might surface.
Yeah, excellent, and definitely one of the big challenges confronting all retailers. Now, another question that perhaps you both may be able to talk to is the migration. You mentioned, Julie, earlier that you were running everything off spreadsheets. So how did the migration occur from all that existing data into the NetSuite platform?
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of effort. It's not, unfortunately, something that's just if you want it all in one place, you've got to work on that. So it does take a bit of planning, and part of finding a great solution is finding the partner that you're going to work on. It's about training your staff in-house, making sure that everyone is really understand how to use the system before you transition onto it, and it is preparing the truth, or the single source of data from day one so that it's accurate. So there is a lot of, you need to do stock taking, you need to transfer a lot of your data from multiple other systems. There was some of it that we decided we didn't necessarily need historicals for, so that can cut a lot of it out for you, and I guess that depends on whether perhaps for us as a younger company, we were happy to, kind of live without some of that. If you're a much more mature organisation, you might need to refer to that more often than we do. But that with any system, if there's going to be that transition stage, that will need a fair bit of preparation work. But obviously, it's worth it in the long run.
That's such a good point, and I think if I was to kind of take my NetSuite hat off for a minute and just go back to being a consultant and look at when you transition to any new system, whether it's NetSuite or any other kind of major system that you re-platform your business with, one of the I guess the most important critical risk factors that we look at is what kind of data needs to come over into your new system. Because if a project of this nature is kind of ever going to fail, it's typically going to be around it's taking too long to get all of your legacy data into your new system. So a lot of consideration needs to be made there in terms of what you need to bring into that new system. And once you've made that decision, there's a lot of data cleansing that you need to go through. Data needs to be in the right format. Your users need to understand what that data is and how it looks into the new system. So this is a really carefully planned and well executed process that we go through in terms of how we get your data in there.
Excellent. Now, two questions that I think are sort of closely related, so I'll ask them together. Paul asks, can you have different prices in different markets with NetSuite? And Bridget asks, does NetSuite integrate with the marketplaces like eBay and Trade Me?
Okay, great questions, and I will answer them actually kind of separate ways because there is two different things here. But the first question, multiple pricing for different markets, yeah, absolutely. There's a very complex, sorry, pardon me, I will use a different word, very comprehensive pricing capability in NetSuite that allows you to address complex pricing strategies, right? So certainly we can handle that. And when I hear different markets, I assume that they may be international markets that we're addressing there, or whether they're B2B, B2C, etc. The second question, in terms of the extended marketplaces, yeah, NetSuite actually works with a partner. They're a US company called Channel Advisor, but they have a very strong presence here in the Australian marketplace. And between the two companies, we have a pre-built connector that takes all of your rich data out of your NetSuite ERP system and pushes that out into the Channel Advisor platform, which then pushes it into the extended marketplaces that you choose to trade in. And those two that were mentioned were certainly part of the Channel Advisors platform. So just leveraging one of our partners in the ecosystem there to push all that content out. Pretty straightforward, actually.
And on that first point, one of the things that I love is that it's not just different pricing you can set for different markets, but you can also set things, for example, different pricing for different customer segments, so that you can, pre-enter different pricing levels for your staff or for, loyalty levels, which is not something we're utilizing at the moment, but the level of granularity that you can enter around pricing is really comprehensive, not only across different markets.
Absolutely, and from my end too, those marketplaces are becoming more and more essential in expanding your reach, and Google Shopping's the other one that wasn't mentioned within that, but if it's a Channel Advisor that you're using, you can utilize that feed to expand your, to really optimize your Google Shopping feed as well, which is really taking off at the moment. That's my 2 cents. Yep. Now, Chloe asks a couple of questions for you, Julie. So can you talk a little bit about the events you do and how you involve the brands you stock? And also, do you have an in-house public relations or do you use an external agency?
We used to use external PR consultants, but we do most of our things in-house now, and we try to bring as much of it in-house as we can. Ultimately, we are hiring a lot of staff because it's the most efficient way to do things, at the growth rate that we are experiencing. We do a lot of co-branded events. We manage, as I said, most of that in-house. Sometimes we do reach out for some additional help, not usually via large PR companies, but sometimes you need additional resources. So we do get some help with that. But yeah, events is something that we want to do more and more of. There's so much to be doing when you're a fast-growing startup, and it's where do you spend your time and your resources. But it's definitely something we'll be doing a lot more of.
All right. So David asks, how did you go about pricing to different currencies using NetSuite? And also says, what doesn't NetSuite do?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Okay, if I can be honest, there's one thing that we don't use NetSuite for, and that's our payroll. So there's very little that it doesn't do for us. It's been pretty comprehensive, and it's sort of exactly what we were looking for. And Tony, did you want to handle the first part about pricing?
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether the question is directed at a pricing strategy, which is really a business decision as to how you price things globally, whether you've kind of standardized your pricing. So maybe that question I might want to actually ask for to be phrased a little different so we can better answer it.
Yeah.
But in terms of the what does NetSuite not do, there's lots of things that we don't do. We certainly don't want to try and be a solution that actually fixes everyone's problem. This is not a silver bullet for retail businesses, but it is a very comprehensive retail management platform. And I guess part of our philosophy is we don't care whether you're online, in-store, or whatever kind of variation of a retailer you are. You can certainly use NetSuite as the backbone for your business and I guess your go-to-market strategy. And in terms of the payroll, yeah, the payroll functionality in NetSuite is actually US-centric, so we can't use it in the local market. But being a platform, software as a service platform, it is a development platform also, which means that we have a lot of partners in our ecosystem that build stuff on the NetSuite platform, and we happen to have a bunch of ex-NetSuite guys who started a business about 4 or 5 years ago, and they went out and built the Australian payroll modules. So it is a third-party product, but it actually lives inside NetSuite, and it just looks and feels like NetSuite. You'd never actually know it was third-party if we never told you, but you obviously buy that through an independent company.
Yeah, and I think that you said that well, Tony. It's really the backbone of the business, and it's up to, I guess, businesses like ourselves to continue to look for additional modules, or build it in-house to to come up with the latest marketing trends around sort of merchandising or whatever it be. NetSuite really is the backbone of the data, the financials, the accounting, the inventory, the CRM.
Excellent, guys. Now, from Bridget, J-Curve. We haven't really talked about J-Curve, but she says, I understand J-Curve is an infant company of NetSuite. Is upscaling between the two easy?
That's an interesting question. It's not actually an infant company of NetSuite. It is a complete independent organization that we truly don't really have anything to do with in terms of its commercial operations. But what J-Curve has built is they bought a license to NetSuite some years ago, and they built a nice wizard, which means that as a really small business, you can buy an account online and go through the process of setting it up online really fast. It is designed for businesses where they've got typically less than 10 staff. So it's kind of like some of the functionality of NetSuite, but very much scaled down to suit a very small organization. Certainly doesn't have the breadth or width of what the NetSuite platform actually has. So in terms of upgrading from a J-Curve account onto NetSuite, yes, it is possible. There is a certain process that we can go through where we can upgrade an account, but we take it on a case-by-case basis, and it really depends on how you've configured your J-Curve account or what you may have done with it. So there's certainly instances where we have successfully upgraded an account into NetSuite, and there are definitely instances where we've had to say, no, sorry, look, you need to go and re-implement NetSuite and start from scratch.
All right, so a couple of marketing questions for you now, Julie. Do you advertise through Facebook, or what type of online advertising works for Style Runner? And also, do you do social media blogger outreach? Do you use social influencers? So a few insights into your marketing strategy, if you please.
Yeah. Well, most of the growth to date has been organic. So we actually spend very little on marketing, and we've just been very fortunate to have, I guess, customer base that are as passionate about it as we are, and share that via word of mouth and via social. So we actually don't spend a lot of marketing. But we do experiment with it all. We know that one day that will plateau, or it'll have diminishing returns, and we'll need to step it up. So we want to have data around what does work and what doesn't. So we don't do a lot of it, and depends on what we are advertising. If we're advertising to sell certain product, or if we're advertising to increase our awareness. So we find that Facebook works for increasing our awareness, because there's that your friends also like this. So there's a trust value, but we also have experimented a lot with, Google AdWords and SEO and SEM, and the usual things that you hear digital companies doing. So we experiment with that, but we spend a very small amount on it at this stage, and that's because if we're growing at 500% a year, we really are just working on delivering that to an exceptional standard. We don't want to spend an enormous amount, which I'm sure would have the return, because we're looking at experimenting to see what the return on investment would be. We could do that, but we don't really need to grow that much more at the moment. So yeah, we do a bit of everything, but it's more experimenting and having that data.
Okay, fantastic. Now, look, we're pretty much at time, but we've still got some questions coming through, which is great. Good to see everyone took an interest and is quite engaged. So Celeste asked, Julie, do you use NetSuite for your EDMs? And are these designed in-house, or do you use a separate company to look after your EDMs?
We do our EDMs in-house. Yes, at this stage we haven't, utilized the data to, as I said, break down into all sorts of, customized EDMs. That's the one thing that we have growing the data on, but we'll definitely start doing. So we have a growing database, and we'll create EDMs in-house. Currently, that's going out to our entire database. But what we are doing is we're learning of our database. How are we going to segment this? And there's plenty of ways that we can start doing that. And again, it comes down to testing and iterating. So we'll probably start sending out EDMs to customers that like yoga or have shopped for yoga brands, or customers that have purchased Nike versus Adidas, or perhaps even the large brands versus the smaller emerging brands might be more appropriate. So we design our newsletters in-house, and yes, we use the CRM part of NetSuite to build our database and work out how to become more efficient and more effective at our newslettering.
Julie, I might just extend on that in terms of what capabilities are available within the platform. From a design perspective, NetSuite's not a design tool. You're certainly not going to go and design an EDM campaign in NetSuite. But what it is it's the vehicle for actually creating your audience, building your audience group, creating your profiles, and however you want to segment your data. Once you've got your audience put together, you can then actually manage the campaign automation side. So the vehicle for sending out the communication, tracking it, opening, whether it's driving to your e-commerce site or what have you, we can manage all of that. But the initial design side, you would actually go and do that in a design program like Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever you may use to put that together.
Yeah, that's makes good sense. All right, absolute last question. How long did the installation, testing, and migration to NetSuite take all up?
Well, we
actually.
Do you want me to
answer that, Julie?
Yeah, sure. I've got any. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, the entire process was around about 4 months for the bulk of the work that we've done today. But as Julie had alluded to before, we're still not implementing the latest e-commerce technology at this point in time. So there's been an integration built with part of what Julie had previously been using. So the core, I guess, to break it down, the ERP, the CRM kind of component, the backbone of the system was all implemented fairly rapidly, and that was fairly straightforward. It's kind of nice to have a client like Julie where the business is not too old. There's not a lot of old legacy processes that you need to either re-engineer or review with them. These guys could actually take a lot of the best practice processes that we were suggesting and recommending to them. But in terms of the e-commerce technology still to come, we're working with that at the moment. And some of that is not necessarily a technology strategy. It's more about the design strategy, how these guys are looking at building their user interface, the journey, the customer journey that they're architecting. So the technology is one component, but the entire design side of their e-commerce strategy is a very large chunk of that's still being worked through. And to set expectations there, that's not a NetSuite component. We don't do any of those things. You would typically be working with your agencies and coming up with whether they're a design agency or a data agency. You work with those guys to come up with that user interface and customer journey experience.
Yeah. One of the things I did like though is that the testing phase was so comprehensive. It was set out over a number of weeks, which was a lot more realistic than previous partners had sold the vision. It was very thorough, so we were given user acceptance testing to go through for every department. So every department had a really complex list of, not complex, comprehensive list of things to trial and ensure we're all working correctly before absolutely, sort of pressing go. So it was, incredibly organised, thorough. Every department had trialed everything they need to do, day to day to ensure there were no bugs that needed ironing out and things were good to go.
All right. Well, look, fantastic, guys. We've gone over time, which is the sign of a good, engaged audience, and really appreciate everyone staying online for as long as you have. Some fantastic content there, Q&A particularly interesting, not only around the NetSuite product, but more insights into how to style run a business is getting ahead and outrunning the competition, as we like to say. So, look, I'd like to thank both Julie Stavagna and Tony Gleeson for delivering the presentation today. There will be a recording available shortly on Power Retail as well. And, really appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks again, guys. We'll end the webinar there and see you at the next one. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, all.